Hey Brian, how's it going?
Hey Drew, another week, another episode of the Nostalgia Blast podcast after dark.
Yeah, so any interesting news out there right now?
There is actually some kind of nostalgia-based news we can mention. Uh, I don't know, every kid in the 90s, every kid today even probably still is familiar with the ice cream truck. There's a whole array of snacks and treats and everything that kids love to eat. But one stalwart of the ice cream truck from the 90s has been discontinued, and that is the Choco Taco.
That's super disappointing.
Have you ever had a Choco Taco?
Oh yeah, I remember like one of the reasons I actually wanted to start going to Taco Bell as a kid was because they started having the Choco Taco there. I'm pretty sure they did, but I remember getting the Choco Taco at Taco Bell. And then like cafeterias, they always had like, an ice cream area. They would always have Choco Tacos there too. And it was just like a treat whenever you got one of those. And like if you had one, like other kids were looking at you and they're like, "Oh, that kid's special. He got a Choco Taco."
I can say that I never in my entire life have had a Choco Taco, but I still was kind of saddened by the news because I always saw it on the, they had the pictures on the side of the ice cream truck of all the different things, and we saw it was like, oh, that's such a unique sort of looking like concept for ice cream. So yeah, even though I never had one, I now don't have the opportunity to ever have one, so I'm sad.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll be like a the Twinkie situation where they got discontinued and then another company bought it up the rights to like make them, and Twinkies are back. They didn't go away.
Well, interestingly enough, there actually has already, of course, been a massive pushback by people who probably haven't eaten a Choco Taco in 10 years but don't want anything to ever change ever, so they went on a huge campaign, tweeting and all of those things, and Klondike, which is the company that, I don't know if they always made it or if they had the right... Anyway, Klondike Company has already sort of replied saying, due to the overwhelming support for the Choco Taco, we're going to try to find ways to bring it back. For at least ice cream trucks, they said.
I feel like this is just a massive PR campaign. They're gonna fake cancel it to just like start selling overstock of Choco Tacos.
I think that's possible because they claimed that a massive increase in demand for their other products over the last 2 years caused them to make the decision. And I'm sitting here thinking, what exactly about Klondike bars suddenly became... I didn't hear anybody saying, oh man, Klondike bars. Like, who even knew remember they existed?
I haven't had a Klondike bar in years. Like, I'm gonna get other ice cream before I get a Klondike bar, but if I saw Choco Taco versus a Klondike bar, I think I would go for the Choco Taco. I just like the ice cream cone.
Yes, I mean, I don't think that... I wouldn't have even guessed that Choco Taco was owned by... Like, I feel like Choco Taco is much better than...
It makes sense now
Klondike
that
bar
you
kind of
say
sucks.
it. Like it's a chocolate sandwich, basically. Chocolate ice cream sandwich.
The design of it is so much better, like compared to like a drumstick, where when you eat a drumstick, you get all the peanuts and the ice cream like first. Like at Choco Taco, you get a bite of everything in every bite.
The problem with a Klondike bar too is that like it has to be the perfect level of frozen, because if it's not frozen enough, you'll take a bite of it and just like ice cream squirts everywhere and the chocolate breaks apart. Like they're not user friendly.
They're definitely not ice cream truck environment friendly. Like whenever I ate Klondike bars as a kid, it was in a bowl with a spoon because
it was just gonna fall apart.
Your hands just got covered in sticky like ice cream stuff, and like there was no way to eat it. It wasn't an on the go thing to me at all.
Yeah,
you had to like hold it in the foil because if you held it in your hand, the chocolate just melted instantly. Just I don't know.
I think adults go for Klondike bar more than kids ever did.
Well, they have that whole like stupid ad campaign. The what would you do for a Klondike bar?
Yeah.
It's like people are saying, "Oh, I'd rustle a polar bear." Like, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do any of these things for a Klondike bar because they suck.
Yeah, they're not that good. It's not worth sacrificing your life for a mediocre ice cream treat when you could, get better ice cream.
I do have to say though, I have had a Heath bar themed Klondike bar. And that was actually pretty good, but that was mostly just because Heath bars I think are really good.
Yeah.
It didn't really have much to do with the like ice cream portion.
While we're on the topic of ice cream, I feel like I should throw my hat in the ring for our state of Ohio. as having some of the best ice cream in the country. We have like so many unique
This
shops.
won't be a hot button issue at all. I'm sure
No,
everyone will
I'm
agree
sure
that Ohio has the
everyone's gonna
best.
everyone's probably freaking out internally. They're like, "Oh, we got great ice cream here in Arizona or something like that." But like, I've never been to Arizona, so maybe you have good ice cream. You've probably never been to Ohio,
You
but
know, I'm gonna say Arizona probably has good peppers. I don't think they got a lot of cows
I'm just
hanging out in Arizona.
this is just an example. It
Okay.
doesn't may not even exist. I'm just saying like we have lots of different good ice cream shops. Like there's Handel's ice cream, which is very good. Mitchell's ice cream, Grader's. Um, there's a place over by me that sells like custard. Can't remember the name right now. I
Well,
haven't been there
let's not
yet.
even start a custard versus ice cream debate. Okay, let's focus
Yeah,
on. Let's only claim
Wits.
one thing here.
Yeah, but Ohio has like a bunch of tiny little ice cream shops, like and Handel's, for instance, super famous ice cream place, at least in like more eastern Ohio, became like so big that when all of the transplants from Ohio retired down to Florida, they had to start opening Handel's in Florida because there was such a demand for it down there.
I mean, I guess my curiosity is what exactly makes one ice cream so much better than like ice cream is. There's one way to make it, right? How do you make it taste better than other companies?
It's like I actually went to this. It was like some extra curricular thing for college at Ohio State, and it was in the agricultural school, and they were talking about the production of ice cream and how there is a science behind it where there's the process of like freezing the milk with whatever the flavors are, and you have to do it at like the perfect speed so that like ice crystals don't form, so it forms the smoothest, creamiest texture you can get.
Yeah, I must be some sort of like ice cream rube or something because
I think so.
pretty much all ice creams essentially taste the same to me.
Oh,
I
I
don't
didn't.
know the
Did I say
quality at
Mitchell's
least.
ice cream? That's another one I should have said.
Yeah, I think you led off with that, or it was
Yeah.
one of the first ones you said. Um, yeah, but anyway, Choco Taco is kind of gone, but probably not really gone, and people were upset, but they probably already are on moving on to being upset about something else. So
It's a PR campaign. I don't believe for a second that they're actually retiring the Choco Taco. It's like a Pepsi company saying, "Oh, we're retiring Mountain Dew." Yeah, sure you are.
well, I guess the bottom line is that my plan to buy up whatever remaining Choco Tacos there were, hoard them for several years, and then sell them at a massive profit is no longer on the table.
Yeah, I wouldn't get into that those stocks.
So hey, if you see a Choco Taco out somewhere, in an ice cream truck or in a random little freezer somewhere, grab it. You
Before
never
it's
know.
gone.
Who knows? They might not come back, but they probably will because nothing is real and everything is pointless. So anyway, moving on to next topic. What was that you wanted to talk about? Some it was a Netflix thing, right?
Yeah, so there's a new documentary on Netflix that is kind of popular. It was in the top 10 and it is Woodstock 99.
The old sequel to the original Woodstock. That
Yeah, Woodstock 69.
so 30-year difference. Was it in the same place? I'm guessing because it was called
No.
Woodstock. It wasn't. Okay.
So it was thrown by the same festival like organizers or whatever promoters, but like they had tried doing Woodstock in years previous to varying degrees of failure, I guess you could say, where
Okay.
things weren't didn't they could never, replicate the original Woodstock because it was just like a perfect culmination of people coming together and like doing stuff for each other and great music and stuff like that. So they had one in '94 that went awful. Like it was so bad that they were like, I don't know if we're gonna do this again. So
Wasn't
that,
even worth making a documentary about. That's how bad it was.
but '99 was just like a shit show, and like you got to watch it just to see everything that happens. It was such a disaster. They had it at an abandoned like Air Force base in like central New York.
Okay. See, at this point, if you're not doing it in Woodstock, why even force the New York
Well,
angle at all?
that's one thing that people were like a little shocked with when they first got there because they didn't really realize that necessarily because with the internet, with like the Fyre Festival for instance, everybody knew what a shit show that was like right away because people started posting to social media. They're like, this is not what it was advertised. And like,
Yeah, this is like a horrible, terrible event that's happening.
yeah, like people got there and they're like, what's going on? Like they're expecting rolling green hills and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
instead it's just like tarmac everywhere you look.
Well, I also think that there was probably a lot of sort of false pretenses, not so much from the people putting it on, but from an idea that people attending had of this idyllic version of what Woodstock was. And so they
Yeah.
built up this image in their mind of, oh, it's going to be this, amazing event. And then did it really, like the original wasn't even like that perfect.
No, I mean the original, you had some extreme drug use going on where people were, tripping balls and stuff like that. And you have that with this one too, but it's just like that was not the bad part of this one. It's worse than that how bad
Okay.
it got. And
Was it weather related or was that pretty much
it was
not a
it
factor?
was people related. We'll get into it, but like the first factor, so like some of the idyllic conditions we are talking about of the original Woodstock was the fact that like everybody was staying the night there because it was a 3 day event, and like they needed food to eat, so they would cook food for each other, and they were like sharing food. It was like this giant like family picnic type thing, where
Okay.
everybody's helping provide for each other. In Woodstock '99, in the previous Woodstock, they had lost a ton of money and they wanted to make sure this one was profitable, so they outsourced all of the food vendors. And the food vendors, they were the only ones who could sell food at the event, and they could charge whatever they wanted.
Oh, this is definitely not going to turn into a greed fest at all, is it?
Yeah, so one thing that happened right away is when people got there, security confiscated everybody's water. So you had to buy the water at the festival, and they were charging like $4 per water bottle.
In 1999.
Yeah,
But this was before people even like water bottles were not like this like as common as they are now. Like I feel
yeah.
like nowadays everybody's always has a water bottle with them, but back then it was
Hmm.
like this kind of weird you're spending money on bottled water. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a weird thing then.
And it was like, middle of summer, so it was like 90 degrees, and people are standing on blacktop.
Okay. I mean, so it was probably like 120 degrees
Yeah.
on the ground or something close to that.
And then, like, another thing that they outsourced was the waste management. So, like, they did an awful job of cleaning up the porta potties when they needed to be cleaned up. And the water supply that they had for the people was right next to the porta potties. Like, by day three, this guy who was responsible for the city water tested the water, and it was completely contaminated with feces.
That sounds about right.
And
So wait, now okay, so this event was planned by people. Some group of
yes,
people planned this. Do you think there was ever a point where any of them thought or knew for a fact this is never going to work, but we're going to just do it anyway because money?
I think they thought they could get away with it. I think that's what it was. That there was a lot of greed, and they thought that they could do the bare minimum. They still had like really good musical acts. So like a lot of the people who went to the event, it was by the time the event ended. Um, am I allowed to give Should I give spoilers, or should we let people watch it?
Uh, we'll give a spoiler alert right here. If you really want to watch the Woodstock show on Netflix and don't want any spoilers, uh, skip ahead or turn off the podcast, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all right. So I'm gonna start saying spoilers. So turn it off if you don't want to hear them. Now, one thing that is super prevalent with '90s culture, um, people who were like around high school age. I had some cousins, who were around high school age. Not saying that my cousins were like this necessarily, but there was like that whole like screw the man type mentality,
Yeah.
anarchy
I
and
mean, I
stuff
feel like
like that.
that's kind of part of every decade, but
More,
yeah,
more so because think of some of the bands that were popular back then, like the punk rock bands like Rage Against the Machine, the Offspring, with all these messages of like,
yeah. No, I totally get what you mean.
"F you, I'm not going to do what you tell me" type thing. And basically, there was like so much garbage and stuff around the festival that this is another part of the waste management. They didn't empty the trash cans, so there's nowhere to put garbage, and people
So
were
wait,
just
what does this waste management company even do? Just
not,
nothing? They just took
basically
money. They just
nothing.
took money from a
Yes,
contract and then
Prob-
just did nothing.
yeah, probably some like Italian mafia thing or something. It's just like, oh yeah, we'll take your money. And then, anyways, there's like trash everywhere. People, are dying of thirst. No one has money. By the third day, there were like no vendors who had food left. And the ones who had food left were charging like $12 for a bottle of water by the end of the day of the festival. And
So people are more desperate. They're being dehydrated now. Will crank up the price.
yeah, and like we get to the point where we're getting to these acts where it's like at one point it's Limp Bizkit and he's got one song that's just about like basically smashing shit, and he's singing that, and the kids out in the audience literally start tearing apart the sound tower that is out in the middle,
Yeah, like the yeah. I know.
for
I've seen that.
supporting the acts or whatever. They started tearing that thing apart, and eventually they got that under control. That was like day two, I think, or day one. Then every night, this was an awful idea. They had a rave every single night where people got really, uh, really high, and they just like it was like a giant sex party. One awful thing that happened at that, there was this like van that drove into the middle of the rave, and they were worried, people getting run over by this van, and security goes up, and the guy sitting in the van is just like super high. They're like, he's just staring out into space. He doesn't know what's going on. They open up the van, and there was like this guy in there with a girl, and the girl was naked, like laying passed out in the back. By the time this festival ended, the people who organized it found out that there were four girls who got raped at this festival.
That it seems it's awful to say, but that is
Not surprising.
lower than I thought it was going to be.
Well, that's you also have to take into account that it was only four that reported.
Right.
That they
I'm
were
sure there
raped.
were lots more incidents like that. Like I mean, in crowds like that, and people are under the influence of drugs. They're I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Well,
not a great place to be, I guess.
there's that and the crowd surfing. Where people are grabbing them and
Yeah.
stuff when
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
crowd surfing. So getting straight to the end to day three. Day three, they keep hyping up that they have a special surprise for everybody.
Okay.
And people are expecting like Michael Jackson or Prince because it's 1999.
Yeah. So something like actually
Yeah,
substantial.
like they knew Red Hot Chili Peppers was the last act, but they thought there was going to be a surprise last act. Um,
It's really great to build the hopes up of a hot,
Pissed off,
thirsty, angry crowd and then
angsty crowd.
underdeliver. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what this was.
So Columbine had just happened like fairly recently,
Okay, like
and
what month was Woodstock 99 in?
I couldn't tell you off the top of
It
my
was
head.
summer, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was very hot,
Okay, when did
so
Columbine happen? Like during the school year, so a little later? Or...
maybe it was like the previous school year or
Okay. All right,
whatever.
so it was recent. Okay.
Um, and there was this anti-gun group that was like doing a fundraiser with Woodstock 99,
Okay.
and they wanted to have this candlelight vigil in support of
That was a surprise.
that was the surprise, that this candlelight vigil. So like Red Hot Chili Peppers played, what is it, Under the Bridge or whatever.
Okay.
They played that song while they handed out candles to every single person in the audience so they could get some video footage of all these people waving the candles and stuff for these people who died in Columbine. And so the security guys talk about this, and they're like, we spent that entire festival making sure people didn't have lighters and stuff like that, and
So a bunch
confiscating
of
lighters.
unlit
So
candles.
yeah, so they give them a bunch of candles, and some of the people who were just like fed up with things and pissed off, they were like tearing apart these like plywood like art things that they had put up, and they were just like burning them. So by the end of the Red Hot Chili Peppers performance, there's these huge fires out in the audience, and they like evacuate, and then like they're trying to figure out what to do, and the crowd is just getting more and more and more rowdy, and the organizers like send out the Red Hot Chili Peppers, have them calm them down or whatever. And,
that's a great idea.
and they're like, we can't do anything. So they go out there and they sing this song. It's a cover of a Jimi Hendrix song. What the heck is it called? It's something about fires.
Okay.
So that's what
So
they
that
did
fed
for
the
their
fire.
encore.
They should have done that Billy Joel song.
So
we didn't start the fire.
Yeah, so there's more and more fires happening, and by the end of this thing, it devolves into a full-on riot where they're just like they just want to destroy everything at this festival because everybody's just so pissed off.
Wow.
Like there's all these vendor tents and stuff. They start sacking the vendor tents. They find that there's ATMs in there, and they are trying to like bust open the ATMs. They're tearing down all the sound towers and shit like that. And
well, they're just helping with the cleanup. Take everything down. The company will come and put their stuff away.
And there was like one of those hangars or whatever, military barracks or whatever, where all of the organizers stayed, and they were literally just like barricading themselves inside so that they didn't die. And it ended with the state police of New York coming in and busting up the riot.
Wow. Hey, mob mentality is nothing to be trifled with. So you put a large group of human beings into a small space, make it hot, totally screw them over in various ways. That's pretty much always going to be the end result, is some sort of uprising or riot or something.
The funny thing is like all of the people that they interview, they're just like, they all said that they would go back, and they said that it was one of the like best memories of their life.
Wow, that's interesting. That's I've never been to a music festival, but from what I understand, people like just absolutely love them. Like they're just like things people look forward to all year long. They cannot wait to go to as many as they can, or to see like go to the ones that have their favorite bands playing at. So that's you wouldn't think that, but that kind of also doesn't surprise me that much, because
this one like seems more like, for how negative it was, it seems almost like a war thing. You know how there's like these warriors who get back from war and then all they want to do is fight. Like they can't deal with being back home, and they actually like volunteer to go back to fight because that's all they know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not quite the same, but
yeah, I would say it's more. They would say they would go back because it was such a shit show that made it like a piece of history.
Memorable.
Yeah, like every other like Coachella or any other event, like they just they happen every year, and you don't remember them from it's just it happened. But this was so you get to say you were part of history in a way.
Yeah, like these guys that were there during the whole riot thing, they're like, it was crazy. They're like, I've never had something that exhilarating in my life.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't have thought that, but when you say that, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Maybe they wouldn't have gone back like if you asked them the day after, but you ask somebody 20 years later, or however, about 20 years later, they're gonna have a different opinion because they're gonna view it differently too, because it happened in the past. They're not remembering the thirst and anything bad. They're just remembering
the good parts.
Like the good part, with quotes.
Yeah, and like I think everyone when they watch it, you'd like to think like, oh, if I was there, I wouldn't partake in any of that, like rioting and stuff like that. I wouldn't. I'm too smart to get involved in any of that. But it's like you just really don't know if it comes. Like if you're drunk or you've smoked something. Like who knows what you're gonna do?
Well, mob mentality is what I mentioned before. It's an individual isn't gonna say I'm gonna riot, I'm gonna destroy things, but you get in that crowd where it feels like you're not responsible for your actions anymore because the responsibility is spread out over a group.
Yeah,
you're gonna do things that maybe you couldn't even like believe. If somebody showed you video of it, you might not even believe that you were doing those things. Yeah,
I mean, like when I was at Ohio State, for instance, after we won this game, like I would never jump onto a football field in the middle of a game because you're going to get thrown in jail. But when everybody jumped onto the football field, of course I jumped onto the football field.
It's like those nuts that were going to all run to Area 51 and saying they can't stop.
Run in.
They can't stop all of us. Well, I mean, that's probably true for a music festival. It's not so true for a highly secure military base that has, weapons and
like drop the nuke.
Yeah, like totally different thing, but just sort of, I don't know, a connection. But
if you want to see how that would have gone, there's a great internet historian video to watch.
There is. You can tell that Drew's the one that sort of watches this stuff and then tells me about it, because I guess I just don't. But yeah, that's all we got for you here on this episode of the Nostalgia Blast Podcast After Dark. We hope you enjoyed our little discussion here, and we will be back with you soon with another episode.
All right, take it easy, everybody.
Later.